Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Today we're looking at some new cards that are coming out of Burst of Destiny, and they're supposed to be supporting the Reptilian archetype. Reptilianne is a level 2 dark attribute reptile type effect monster with 200 attack and 0 defense. And its effect is you can use only one effect among the first and second effects with this card's name per turn, and only once that turn. One during the main phase if you have a reptile monster in your graveyard. One during the main phase if you have a reptile monster in your graveyard. As a quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one face-up monster your opponent controls, change its attack to 0. And 2, if your opponent controls a monster with 0 attack, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. The reptilian monsters work within their archetype to generate your opponent's monsters to become 0 attack points, and then most of them try and steal your opponent's monsters and then help you to synchro summon into their synchro monsters. That's the purpose essentially of this card. It's able to just activate as a hand trap just to shut down your opponent's attack points, and this actually lasts not only for the whole turn but for the duration that monster remains face up on the field. The secondary ability just lets you special summon this card from the graveyard. Obviously this can be used as part of the synchro material or for a tribute summon of one of your higher level reptilian boss monsters. This doesn't really have much of consideration for it in all limitations, but I would only say it's a bit annoying that you have to have the first and the second effects only activate once. You have to choose between the two. You can't simply use this effect and then revive it on the same turn. Reptilian Curtail is a level 4 dark attribute reptile type tuner monster. It's got 1400 attack and 1000 defense. And its effect is you can only use the first effect with this card's name only once per turn. One, if you control a dark reptile monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can special summon reptilian monsters from your hand up to the number of monsters with 0 attack your opponent controls. 2, if this card you control is used as synchro material for a reptile monster, you can treat it as a non-tuner. The purpose of this card is it's basically a tuner monster, so it's there to help facilitate your synchro summons. Being able to special summon itself just by having a dark reptile monster is actually good because reptilians mostly meet this characteristic. The other thing is, if you happen to have your opponent's monsters with 0 attack, you're able to kind of swarm the field with other reptilians, making you either able to use their effects or to be able to help you go into your synchro monsters much more easily. The other part of the effect just transfers its ability to become a tuner into a non-tuner. So if you happen to have other tuners on the field, that means you can still go into a synchro summon without having to get rid of some of your resources. Reptilian melosine is a level 8 dark attribute reptile type synchro effect monster with 2500 attack and 2800 defense. And its effect is it requires a synchro materials of 1 reptile tuner plus 1 non-tuner monster. You can use the second effect with this card's name only once per chain. 1, if this card was synchro summoned using only reptile monsters as material, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. 2, when your opponent activates a monster effect, as a quick effect, you can target one face-up monster they control, change its attack to 0. And 3, if this synchro summoned card you control is sent to your graveyard by an opponent's card, you can add one reptile monster from your deck to your hand. So actually the summoning of this card isn't particularly difficult. You will have various monsters that meet the conditions within the archetype. The first effect rewards you for using only purely reptile monsters rather than splashing in other types, because it does give you protection from battle and card effects. The second effect helps when your opponent tries to activate monster effects, and since it's a quick effect, it can be activated during yours or your opponent's turn, and it instantly turns their attack points to 0. Only concern is it can only be used once per chain. That means if your opponent is able to chain their monster effects and their other effects more effectively, they can actually chain block this effect. Not many players know how to do this effectively, but if you know how things resolve, in that the last thing that activates is the first thing that actually activates, that helps you to kind of think about how you can chain block your opponent. And the third effect, if it happens to be sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you're just able to search out for one of your reptile monsters. It helps just float into additional resources. Overall, I think this card is actually quite decent for a synchro monster. It does have slightly higher defense than it has attack, but changing your opponent's attack position monsters to 0 means you're going to be able to get over their threats no matter what the size of their attack points originally are. Reptilian Lamification is a normal spell card with the effect you can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. 1. Send one card from your hand to the graveyard, then choose two of these effects. You cannot choose the same effect twice, and you resolve them in the listed order, skipping the one not chosen. Add one reptilian monster from your deck to your hand. Add one reptilian spell or trap card from your deck to your hand, except reptilian Lamification, or change the attack of one face-up monster your opponent controls to 0. This is quite a decent effect because it depends on your situation and actually what you prefer to use. I like the fact that it can actually search for any of your reptilian cards, be it monster, spell or trap, and you can actually choose those effects if you prefer, if you need your hand to be a little bit more bulky, or you can choose one of those effects alongside the ability to change one of your opponent's monsters to 0 attack. I do find it quite interesting that it does have the limitation here you cannot use the same effect twice. So it's not like you can add 2 reptilian monsters or 2 spell or trap cards, or to adapt your opponent's attack position monsters to 0 attack twice. And it says that you do have to use them in and resolve within the same order that's already on the card text. That means if your priority is to 0 out your opponent's attack points, you can't do that first because it's the last effect listed on here. It's something different, and different isn't always bad. It's just getting used to a different way of understanding the text. And the final card is Reptilian Recoil. This is a field spell card with the effect you can only use each effect among the first and second effects with this card's name only once per turn. 1. You can target one monster you control with 0 attack and one dark attribute reptile monster in your graveyard. Destroy that first monster on the field, and if you do, special summon that second monster in your graveyard. 2. If your opponent activates a monster effect, you can target one face-up monster they control with 0 attack. Take control of that monster, then special summon one reptilian token, which is a reptile earth attribute level 1 with 0 attack and 0 defense to your opponent's field. The purpose of the first effect is you're able to get rid of one of your weak attack monsters. Maybe it's already used its effect and it's no longer viable to keep on the field. Especially with 0 attack, it means that your opponent's just going to be able to almost direct attack you with their monsters, and you just replace it with one of your other reptilian monsters. Then you're able to use that card's effect. The secondary effect helps to replace your opponent's monster with a token. That might not seem as that big of a deal, but if they need a specific type of monster, this will disrupt them. It also means by stealing their monster, you're able to use that as part of a synchro summon. Unlikely they're going to be able to use the reptile token itself, unless of course they can actually use it for link summoning. Overall, I think these cards are quite decent and actually help to support the reptilian archetype. You do have quite a few reptile type monsters already within the game, and even some of the newest support within the deck build pack have helped to actually make them a lot more viable. I still think they're at this point where they need a little bit more support, even just more generic support as opposed to archetypal support, but I'm sure we'll get that in the future. What do you guys think of these cards? Is there anything you particularly like or dislike? Do you think the Reptilians actually have any creative play within them? Or do you think they're just a bit of a lost cause? Whatever you think, leave those thoughts down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily Yu-Gi-Oh content.